Every once in a while, a single idea just pops up and changes, well, everything. And for AI, that moment was back in 2017. It came from a research paper with this almost poetic title, "Attention is All You Need." So today, we're going to break down how this one paper totally reinvented the game and really set the stage for all the AI we're seeing right now.
Okay, so to really get why this was such a huge deal, we need to ask a super simple question. I mean, really, think about it. How does a computer actually read a sentence? It sounds basic, right? But the answer, well, that's the key to this whole story.
For the longest time, we're talking decades, the answer was painfully simple, and I mean painfully slow. A computer would read a sentence, one single word at a time, from left to right, kind of like we do. But there was this massive catch, a huge limitation in how it worked.
Right. And that huge limitation, we call it the sequential problem. See, before this paper dropped in 2017, the heavy hitters in AI were these things called recurrent neural networks, or RNNs for short. The easiest way to think about them is like they're reading with a really short-term memory. They were built to handle things in a sequence, but that also meant they were totally stuck in that one word after the other grind.
So this is the absolute heart of the problem. With sequential computation, if a model wants to understand, say, the fourth word in a sentence, it has to process the first, second, and third words first. It's like a line of dominoes. You can't get to the end without tipping over every single one before it. And that creates this massive bottleneck. You can't just throw more computers at it to make it faster, because it's fundamentally a one-at-a-time job.
Okay, check this out, because this slide really puts that bottleneck into perspective with a little bit of computer science. The old way with those RNNs was what we call O of n. N is just the number of words, so a 10-word sentence, 10 steps. A 100-word sentence, 100 steps. The longer the sentence, the longer it takes. It's a straight line. But then, look at self-attention. It's O of 1. That 1 means it's constant. It takes one step. 1. It doesn't matter if the sentence is 10 words or 1,000 words long. It's all done in a single, parallel shot. I mean, this is the definition of a game changer.
So, you've got this fundamental speed limit. This wall that you just can't get past. The researchers at Google Brand basically said, okay, forget trying to make the old way faster. We need something totally new. And that led them to a truly radical idea.
And they didn't bury the lead either. This is right from the abstract, the very soul of the paper. They're like, we're proposing a new, simple architecture, the transformer, and its main job to completely throw out that old, sequential, one-word-at-a-time method. They said, let's build the whole thing on this concept called attention. The question they were really asking was revolutionary. What if, just what if, a computer could see every word in a sentence all at the exact same moment?
So, how on earth did they do that? How do you make that happen? All right, let's pop the hood and take a look inside the transformer.
And here it is, the famous figure 1 from the paper. Now, I know, it looks like a lot, right? But just think of it like this. It's a super smart translator. The whole chunk on the left, that's the encoder. Its job is to read a sentence and just deeply understand it. Then, the chunk on the right, the decoder, takes that deep understanding and starts writing the translation. Simple enough? But what's the magic making it all work?
Well, the engine, the real horsepower behind this whole thing, is a brand new mechanism they called self-attention. This is the piece that let them throw out that old, slow, sequential process.
So these diagrams here, they show you the guts of that engine. You've got scale dot product attention on the left and multi-head attention on the right. Now, don't worry about the fancy names. Here's all you really need to know. This whole setup lets the model pick any word in a sentence, and for that one word, it can look at every other word simultaneously and figure out how important are you to my meaning. And the craziest part, it does this for every single word all at the same time, in parallel.
Okay, let's break that down even simpler. Imagine a word gets curious. That's step 1, the query. It's basically shouting out, hey, who here can help me make sense? Then step 2, compare. It checks its question against every other word in the sentence. Those are the keys. From that comparison, you get step 3, the score. It's like every other word gets a little relevance score. You're 80% relevant, you're 10%. Step 4, weigh. Those scores get turned into real importance percentages. And finally, step 5, combine. The original word gets a new, supercharged meaning, enriched with all that context from the other words. And remember, this whole dance happens for every word at once. No more waiting in line for sure.
All right, so that all sounds amazing on paper, right? But the million-dollar question is always, did it actually work? Well, this is where the story gets really good. Let's talk about the results, because they were absolutely stunning.
So, to prove their new model was the real deal,
The team put it up against the big boss of benchmarks at the time, the WMT 2014 machine translation tasks. This was like the Olympics for AI translation, the gold standard for seeing how well you could translate English into German and French.
And boom, here's the proof. This table shows something called a BLEU score. All you need to know is it's a way to measure translation quality. The higher the score, the better the translation. Now, the previous reigning champion, which was the super complex model, also from Google by the way, was sitting at 26.3. The brand new transformer, it clocked in at 28.4.
Now, I know what you're thinking. A jump of just 2 points. That doesn't sound like much. But you have to understand, in this field, people fight for fractions of a point. A 2-point jump on a benchmark this important wasn't just a big deal. It was a seismic shock. This wasn't just beating the old record, it was shattering it.
And here's the kicker that made this whole thing just mind-blowing. It wasn't just about getting a better score. Remember that parallel processing trick? It meant the transformer was also way faster and cheaper to train. The paper mentions their top model hit this record-breaking score after training for only 3.5 days. That was a tiny fraction of the cost of the old models. So think about that. It's better, it's faster, and it's cheaper. That's like the holy trinity of engineering breakthroughs.
When you combine that, better results, faster training, and lower costs, you realize what they built wasn't just a better translation tool. No, it was something much bigger. It was a whole new foundation for AI itself. And what's cool is, the authors knew it. They basically called their shot right there in the conclusion. They said they were excited about applying these attention-based models to other tasks. They understood they hadn't just solved one problem, they had created a key that could unlock a whole lot of doors.
So, where does that leave us? Well, it brings us right here to today. You know that T in ChatGPT? It stands for transformer. This very architecture, this idea of looking at everything at once, it's the bedrock, the literal foundation for pretty much all the modern AI you hear about. It all traces back to this one paper.
So it really leaves you with a pretty big question, doesn't it? At its core, this paper was about teaching a machine how to pay attention, to focus on what really matters, all at once. If an idea that simple can unlock something as unbelievably complex as human language, you have to wonder, what's it going to unlock next?